As you know, I have tried a number of play-to-earn games since starting this channel. Townstar, Splinterlands, Blancos, even some games on the Algorand blockchain. The promise of earning money just for playing a game is certainly alluring. And what if you could own all your assets? It sounds like a dream come true. What I'm going to show in this video is that that dream has failed. And play-to-earn games mostly mean companies can charge a lot more per player, often before a game is even released. In fact, many play-to-earn games exist in a perpetual beta state. And that's why I'm going to show you why play-to-earn games are bull on today's FrugalBC. All right, now I understand play-to-earn games, they're hard to resist. Games that allow you to earn on your assets, so you earn just to play games, like it sounds too good to be true. The fact is, it actually is too good to be true, and here's why. There's a principle called the Pareto principle. It posits that the top 20% of any given distribution will account for 80% of the results. What do we mean by that? Like that can apply to income distribution, earnings by Amazon authors or YouTubers, or even OnlyFans creators, or even company profits. This also applies to a company's customer base. 80% of a company's profits will come from 20% of its customers. This is where play-to-earn games come in. Now, so regular companies are all too aware of this already. Think about it. Under a traditional game selling model, a company releases some game, customers buy it, and then that's all the company gets until the next game. And with that company, 20% of their games might account for 80% of their sales. That's another Pareto distribution. But that doesn't take advantage of super customers. Now, these are the customers that will generally buy everything you put out. They can still only buy that $150 game. The companies figured out that they can make a whole lot more money if they had more available for those super customers to buy. Subscriptions for online games or downloadable content for mobile or console games. In fact, anyone, for example, can play Fortnite now for free, and many will never buy anything from the game. Then there's another number of people that will buy a handful of things here and there, and then there are super users that'll buy just about everything that Fortnite puts out. And they'll make more because they can continue earning on that same game while making a handful of updates. And that's where the business genius of play-to-earn games comes in, because this takes us even a step further. By creating NFTs with earning potential, they can sell these NFTs at a premium, and they can sell these NFTs before there's even a use case for them. In fact, play-to-earn game companies will often sell multiple seasons of NFTs before the game is even out, or in some cases, before there's even any gameplay footage. In fact, even a step further, sometimes there's NFTs that aren't even attached to a game yet. Well, let's take Gala Games for a great example. So I went to the Gala Games store and found NFTs for 9 different games, and only 2 were available. Now, that was a number of months ago. Now there's a few more games out, but there's still far more games that have NFTs available than are actually playable in any form. And none of these games have passed the beta stage yet. So why do players buy them if they're so expensive? Well, essentially, it's a promise of future rewards. They're often sold as getting early in on a game that might later explode and take off, making those early NFTs highly valuable. A real-world example of this is something like Magic the Gathering, where people who bought in those early sets now find that those cards are worth a lot of money. If the game is successful, that might be the case. For example, early Splinterlands players were able to enjoy a huge advantage because they were able to buy cards at a price that today's players could only dream of. But that hints at the downfalls of the NFT games. The fact is, most NFT games go one of 2 ways. They either go the Splinterlands route, or they go the Townstar Axie Infinity route. Since I mentioned Splinterlands, let's start with that. Earnings on Splinterlands follow a Pareto distribution. The top 20% of players earn most of the rewards. It's actually structured that way. In fact, when I first started playing, players earned rewards for each battle. They started off minuscule, but they increased as you progressed. Over time, they turned off rewards at the entry level. The fact is, they needed to make it much harder to earn, otherwise the coin would be devalued, as we saw with Townstar and Axie. But that meant earning power accrued to those at the very top level, and anyone else would make little, if anything, unless they spent a massive amount of money on cards. You literally can't afford to get to the higher earning levels without holding enough card power, i.e. spending money. So the bottom 80% are basically funding the top 20% of winnings. As new people come in, they're funding the people who are actually making money on the game. is the only way it's sustainable, because how else would it stay sustainable? The money has to come from somewhere. Now, the other example is Townstar Axie Infinity, and that's a model for failure. Why? Well, last July, Gala announced that it was turning off its earning. Now, why did it do that? Well, that's because the economy was actually collapsing. It didn't solve the problem Splinterlands did, because people could essentially earn on it too easily. And what they were doing was they were earning Towncoin, turning around and selling that for cash, and thus basically crashing the coin's price. It was at like 1 cent, down from like 68 cents at one time, even higher in the $1 to $2 range. And so this crashed the price of the coin once the new influx of players stabilized, meaning more money was going out than coming in. Gala seems to have realized this and applied this knowledge to their new game Spider Tanks, where only a very limited number of NFTs actually earn money and other players can rent it. Most people are buying NFTs that don't actually earn in the game, thus changing the balance a little bit in favor of money coming in. Townstar also seems to be setting themselves up this way whenever earn turns back on, which we really don't know when that's going to happen. There is still a way to earn on Townstar, and that's through competitions, but the competitions basically work like Splinterlands, because to get really high in these competitions, you pretty much have to spend a pretty massive amount of NFTs. You're just going to be left behind. There's no competition for non-NFT players. They recently introduced teams, but that seemed to strengthen even further that people with strong NFT collections, i.e. spending a lot of money, would in fact end up winning the most. So a handful of people, again, it's about 20%, are actually going to earn a Gala. The rest are all funneling money into the game without getting anything back. And even with those people who are spending that much money on NFTs, taking a look at the Discord, it was really apparent to me how much people are spending on this game. I'm not even sure they're getting their money back in the amount that they're earning, and I'm not sure some of them care, to be honest. Another thing that I learned is that maybe your non-fungible token, your NFT, is non-fungible, but the game isn't. As we saw with Townstar, yes, you still hold on to that token, you still have that NFT, but they can shut off earning like that. So it's not guaranteed just because you bought this NFT that it's going to continue working the way it has, nor will it hold the value. Right now, the NFT that I bought for nearly $300, you can now buy an OpenSea for 15 bucks. So yeah, sounds like a great deal, very non-fungible. So some might say, well, I want to go to this final argument because this is something I've been saying for a while. Well, maybe play to earn is kind of a misnomer and doesn't really work. What about this idea of having assets in the game just simply be verified on the blockchain? They don't have to necessarily earn anything, but just the idea that you own them outright, doesn't that have value? And I thought that for a long time. But then I had a conversation with DZ from BitBoy Crypto, and he pointed out two things. For one, if you're a Web3 company, you don't have any incentive to do this, right? Your incentive, because you're going to sell these NFTs, and the idea is that people will earn on these NFTs, that incentivizes them to spend more before you even have a game out. So there really isn't much reason for a Web3 company, for a crypto company, to release a game without an NFT component that doesn't also have some kind of earning potential. And even if they do that, they're generally going to charge a lot more because it's an NFT. For example, I bought an NFT for Fractal Monsters. I paid 20 something for it, but really it had been going for about $50 through the shuffle. Considering the kind of game, it's basically a browser game. I can't think of another browser game that I would have spent 50 bucks on, or even 22 for that matter, for what's a pretty basic game, by the way. That's not to pick on them. That's just to highlight this phenomenon. Now, what about non-Web3 companies? What would their incentives be? Well, they're not incentivized to do this either, because for one thing, their fan base doesn't like NFTs. You can look at any Reddit forum, and anytime NFTs come up, gamers are just dead set against it. But besides that, they don't have an incentive to create an asset that you can turn around and sell to somebody else instead of the game company making the money on that sale. Why would they do that? There's no reason for them to do that. Instead of me buying the gun, and when I'm done with the gun, selling it to player B, the game company would rather sell me a gun and player B a gun. So there really is no reason for them to support this. And some companies have been getting into NFTs. It's a pretty small number compared to the numbers that are just dead set against it. So I hope that I've made my case here today, and I didn't come to this lightly. I was one of the supporters of NFTs in games and of play to earn games. But the more I went along, the more I just realized there's something not right. Now, I had made a video criticizing that one NFT documentary by that Canadian fellow, and I still stand by a lot of that. But I've definitely changed my mind on play to earn games. Now, it doesn't mean I won't try these out once in a while, but I'm very reluctant to spend any money on these games. They seem to be mostly a way for companies to earn more money sooner in the process, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you have to be mindful that you could be funding a game that just never makes it out of beta. Townstar, for example, is still in beta, and they're about to go to a new version without ever really truly completing their game. In fact, a lot of Gala games are along those lines. In fact, a lot of them just haven't even come out yet. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I know this is a lot. I know this is a really long video, and I know it's probably going to tick off a lot of my subscribers, but I'm dedicated to what I see as the truth, and I'm always going to put that out there, agree or disagree with me. I hope you got something from this video, and I hope I'd love to hear counter arguments as long as you're respectful. I always entertain counter arguments. I like to hear what I'm missing, and I like to have that discussion. So go ahead and jump in the comments. Let me have it. Again, I've asked that you be respectful. I just simply won't respond to people who are disrespectful, but I will respond to you if you're respectful, but you disagree with me. So I'll leave it at that. If you like what you heard today, hit the subscribe button, like button, or downvote it too if you don't like it. That's up to you. And as always, I'm FrugalBC. Keep your coins safe, not your keys, not your crypto. Ledger for the maximum amount of safety. And I'll see you in the future.